Okay, so let me explain to you some of the other functions of the psoas before we move on. So I talked about it being a psoatic shelf. That's really important because the abdominal organs, especially in yoga, because this is what we're doing here, okay, especially in Ashtanga Yoga. So in Ashtanga Yoga, what you're doing is it's a pressure system that you're basically trying to manage, okay. So you have up here a pneumatic system, okay, an air system, and down here you have a hydraulic system, okay, a liquid-filled viscera. When you breathe and the diaphragm goes down, okay, as you push the diaphragm down, it massages all of the internal organs, but only if there's support here. So this afternoon we're going to be looking at Mula Bandha. When Mula Bandha, Uddiyana Bandha is lifted and the diaphragm is going down, all of the internal organs are being massaged like this. Okay? And so what happens is the psoas then becomes, I don't even know what word I'd use for it, but it's almost like the psoas is it's the connection between the brain and the pelvis. Okay? It basically guides all of that and supports it. Okay? It holds things. Almost in the same way that you might hold and hug a small child. That's what the psoas is doing for your internal organs. Okay? So, psoas shelf, yes, hydraulic pump, but actually, and often more importantly, it acts as a fear reflex. Okay? So, all of us when we were born, there's only one fear, okay, that our body instinctually had. Okay? So forget anything else like fear of spiders or open spaces or whatever it is that you might be afraid of. Fathers, brothers, whatever, husbands, wives maybe. Okay? So the instinctual fear that we have is the fear of falling. Okay? So instinctively within the body, it's the primal survival mechanism. Okay? If our body is threatened in terms of falling, what happens is, and it also happens with loud noises as well. So if you have a plane goes overhead, what usually happens is the body's natural reflex, okay, is to engage the flexors of the body, okay? So when there's fear experienced in the body, what happens is everything clenches together. So there's three flexors in the body. There's the hip flexor, the trunk flexor, and the neck flexor, okay? When they go, what happens is, so the hip flexors go, psoas, okay? Trunk flexor go, and the neck flexor goes. And so loud noise, or if we're going to fall, okay, what immediately happens is we close down this sensitive part of the body, because that's the bit we have to protect. So that's what the flexors are doing. They're protecting the front of the body from damage, threat, or whatever it is. And so that's immediately what happens, and it still happens. So when you were a baby, that would be what happened. If you thought you were going to fall down the stairs, immediately the hip flexors would engage. Before your conscious brain had a chance to actually make the conscious decision not to put the step forward. There would be that sense of, okay? And the fear reflex, which fires the psoas, when we're younger, very often, if that happens a lot when we're younger, and it isn't given a chance to actually release, there can be a residual tension stored in the psoas, okay, which is deeply connected with fear, okay? And so, especially those of you who might be worriers, and there are some people who are do a lot more worrying than others. You may have a habitually tight hip flexor, okay, so that you're storing tension in this region down here, and every time you experience negative emotions, it fires the reflex even more. Okay, and so what happens with those sort of people is they end up closing down the front of the body. Okay, and that's one of the reasons why the sensations for the psoas are so subtle. Okay, and as you can only access them through the breath, which is what we're going to be doing in a bit when we move into the Ashtanga sequence. Okay, so it's not uncommon when we move in yoga into things like back bends, okay, or even into deep psoas stretches like lunges, to experience emotions in the body. Okay, and the reason why is that the psoas also acts as let me just explain in a little bit more detail about this. So it's deeply connected with what's called the abdominal brain. Okay, so the abdominal brain is what connects, is basically your emotional centre of the body. Okay, down here. Okay, so the guy Robert Newport Langdon, try again, Langley. Okay, if you want to go and read about him. Okay, at the turn of the century, turn of the 19th century, 1894 or something, when he wrote about the nervous system, he wrote about three parts of the nervous system. Okay, sympathetic, parasympathetic and what he called the enteric nervous system. Okay? Now, in medical textbooks these days, you're probably not going to find much about it, but he wrote about it. He was the guy who first theorized about the autonomic nervous system. Okay? So, the enteric nervous system actually controls, first of all, your digestion, and second of all, it's where the emotions arise in the body. Okay? So, if you've ever seen a picture of an inside of a body, and you've seen the folds of the intestines, right? Okay? It actually, if you compare that to the folds in the brain, it actually looks very, very similar. And one of the reasons why is because you have two brains, your brain up here and your brain down here. Okay? It's where the phrase gut feelings come from. Okay? So that when you have an experience of a gut feeling, an emotion, it hits you right in the solar plexus, in this region down here. Okay? It's like I've got butterflies in the stomach, right? That is the area in here, okay? And it's a huge network of nerves, a big ganglion of nerves, and it has the same number of nerves and the density of nerves as the spinal cord, and the same neurotransmitters as in the brain. And in fact, this brain down here can function without that brain. It's actually your most important brain. If this brain is dead, and you'll see this in people who are brain dead in hospital, okay, but the body is still working, they can still digest food. Okay, there's still activity going on down here. But this brain can't survive without this brain down here. If this brain dies, okay, then this brain dies. It's very interesting. But it's also interesting that there are two ends of the spine as well, which for yoga is exactly what we're working with. Okay? Again, I'll talk about this in a little more detail tomorrow, this afternoon. So in yoga, we're talking about unifying opposites. Okay? And this central channel, which we call Sushumna, okay, there's energy at the top and energy at the bottom. And that's no coincidence. And the activity along this channel between is actually the practice of yoga. It's beginning to get energy to move up and down here. But for many of us, energy is sort of stuck halfway down. Okay? Or what's in yoga is called the grunties, the knots. Okay? They get stuck. Now, so the enteric nervous system, I could go on about it, I could probably do a whole workshop about that. Okay, but this is really important because it means that emotions are connected in with the psoas. Okay, so that when you have emotions in the body, emotions, the nerve endings are in the psoas. Okay, so that when the emotions are stored down here, and emotions are energy, and that's what when the nerves fire when you experience whatever it is, fear, guilt, pain, anger, whatever it is, the nervous system, the abdominal brain sends the signals through the psoas into the spinal column. And so if the psoas, acting like a telephone wire, if the psoas is healthy and the fibres are free and the nadis, the energy connections, are cleaned out, it means that the signal's going to be clearer. But otherwise, if it's not, you're probably going to find that you're going to experience quite a lot of emotional discomfort. Okay? And this is quite important because for many people, that's not where they want to go in the yoga practice. They get to the yoga practice and think, yeah, come with yoga, let's go and stretch, yeah, fantastic. Oh, why am I experiencing emotions? No, I don't want to go there. My teacher says breathe down here, but every time I breathe down here, this horrible fear starts to come up. Okay, and this is one of the things, this is one of the reasons why we don't access the psoas, because as the breath goes down, emotions come up. And the emotions which are deeply connected with the psoas, ready to go, often holding tension, when we go in, the only way they want to go is come up. And they have to come up, they have to come out. And that means experiencing things. So we numb out, right? We don't go.